The purpose of this video is to begin working with SAS, and our goal is to download our data from the NHANES dataset and to convert it into a file format that we can use with SAS. So this is what SAS looks like when you first open it. And what you will see is that there are three tabs down here, an output tab, a log tab, and an editor tab. The editor is this window here. This is where we are going to write the code for our SAS analyses. And the log file up here, this gives us information about how SAS is running. So when we run our code, we will get information here that will help us to ensure that our code is running correctly, and it will also help us to debug our code when it has problems. And here is another window, the output window. So some of our output will come here. We can't see it now, but there will also be, when we have output, there will be a fourth tab here that gives output in a nice HTML format. Now, related to that, one thing that I want us to do is I want us to go to this Tools section and go to Options and Preferences. And within here, I want us to go to the Results tab. And I want us to check this under Listing, this Create Listing. So we'll have both the Create Listing and Create HTML tabs checked here. And we'll just hit OK. And what that's going to do is that's going to have our output, all of our output is going to come to this output window. This is what the listing does, and then in addition to the HTML outputs. And the reason I like to use the output window is that if you come here, if you right click and you go to edit, you can clear this window, and that's quite useful when you are doing a lot of analyses one after another and you're troubleshooting things. You don't want to have to scroll down to the bottom of a long list of outputs that you've done during a working session. And so far, I haven't found a way to clear the HTML output. Maybe somebody can teach me how to do that. So I like to use this output, and that's what that checking off that create listing makes the program do. So what I want to mention is that what we are doing in this video is following one of the tutorials on the NHANES website. So if you go to the NHANES website and click on the tutorials link, and then click on the continuous NHANES tutorial, you can get it either here or here. And then you go to preparing an analytic dataset. We are following the download data section in this video. So you could read about it there if you want. Okay, now what we're going to be doing here is we are going to be downloading the data. And you remember that the data are found in the questionnaires, datasets, and related documentation section. I'm going to be using the 2007 and 8 and the 2009 and 10 data. So let's just look in here. And you remember that the different data sets are inside here, and we looked at the .doc files before to learn about the data sets. The actual data are right here, so this is where we are going to download them from. But before we start, we need to create a place for them to go. And so I'm going to create a new folder on my C drive, and I'm going to call it NHANES. And then inside the NHANES folder, I'm going to create two new folders. And one of them I'm going to call temp. And the other one I'm going to call data. And I'm just following the format that they use in the explanatory tutorial on NHANES for this. And so the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to download the data from the NHANES website into the temporary directory, into the temporary folder. And then we're going to use SAS to convert the files into a format that we can use and put those files into the data folder. Now, you'll remember that in the previous video, we created this Excel file. And one of the things we recorded was the names of the different data sets that we need to download. So all of my spirometry data They are in the datasets called SPX underscore E and SPX underscore F. And I also need MCQ, I need demo, and I need SMQ, and maybe that's the last one. Yes, that's the last one that I need. So I need these data sets. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through my list here in this Excel file, and I'm going to download all of these data sets. So let's go find SPX underscore E first. So that is part of the examination center data. These are the spirometry data. There it is right there, SPX underscore E. So I'm just going to click on this data link here. And then it's going to ask me where to save them. And so I'm going to save this data set into the temp folder. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and download SPXF, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to download all of these data sets that I need and put them into the temp folder. Okay, now I've downloaded all of my data sets from the NHANES website. This is like one of those baking shows where the cake magically comes out of the oven completely baked after 10 seconds. So what have I got here? So I have all of the data sets in the temp folder. And so what we're going to be doing here right now, we have a number of data sets in our temp folder. And what we want to get are new data sets in our data folder. And what we're really doing is we're just changing the format of these data sets into something that SAS can use, and we're going to store those properly formatted data sets in our data folder. And so we're just going to write a little bit of a SAS program to do this transfer and conversion into a different data format. Okay, so let's come here to SAS and let's start writing this program. Now I'm in the editor tab. Whoops, I was. Now I am. And the first thing I want to do is I want to save this so that I can save it while I'm working. And I'm going to go to the NHANES folder on my C drive, and I'm going to store this in the temp directory. And I'm going to call this create SAS data sets from transport files. And transport is the file type in which the data are currently stored. So we're going to be creating SAS formatted data sets from these transport files. So just, oh, I guess I have to write something first. Okay, let's try that again. Yeah, that was the problem. You have to write something first before you can save it. Okay, so now I have it saved. Now, the first thing we're going to be using in SAS are things which are called library names. And they are just labels that we use to create a shorthand marker for a particular folder on the hard drive or a particular file on the hard drive. Let me show you what I mean. The first thing we write is the word LIBNAME. This stands for library name. And the next thing after that is a label that we're going to be using to point at something on the hard drive. And I'm going to, and you can use whatever you want. I think there are probably some constraints on it, maybe 256 characters. Maybe it can't start with a number. I'm not sure. But certainly we can use a word like data to be our pointer. And what I want to do here is I want this pointer to represent the data folder on my C drive. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get the path name for that folder. So I'm going to go over here to Windows Explorer, and I'm going to go and find, this is the folder I want to point to. And I can come up here and I can right click on it and I can copy the address as text. And then if I go back to the SAS data set, then I can just do a Control V to paste it there. And so now I have the path name to the data folder. Now what I need to add here is I need to put a single quote here, a single quote at the end, and then I need to finish the whole thing off with a semicolon. So this is our first line of code. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. You'll notice here this little asterisk. This indicates that there is something unsaved in the program. So when I hit save, it's going to go away. So now everything is saved. And as soon as I start writing, I just hit an enter and I got an asterisk here again. So the next thing we want to do, so basically what you want to do is you want to put the target folder where you want to put your new SAS data sets. And I want to move these from the temp folder into the data folder. And that's why I use that folder here. So now what we're going to do is we need to create pointers to the actual files that we want to convert. And so if I go back over here, inside the temp directory, I have all of these different files. Now we can't see the file name extensions here, but if we go back to the NHANES website, we can see that these are .xpt files. So let's start with demo_e.xpt and create a marker to this file. So in our SAS file, what we want to do is we're going to use the lib name statement again. Let me use lowercase. And I'm just going to be using the marker A for this particular file. And this time, since we are pointing to a file instead of pointing to a folder, we need at this next step to put in something to tell SAS which kind of file it's going to find. And it's a .xpt file, and there's a word that we use to indicate that kind of file, which is export, export file. And so then after this, we're going to put the path to the file that we want A to represent. So what I can do is I can come over here and I can do a copy address as text using a right click. And I can put that here. And since we're going to be enclosing it in 2 single quotes and a semicolon, I tend to like to put those in there first. And then I go back and I do a Control V to paste that path in there. Now this just points to the folder. So we also need to put the name of the file and the name, and we put a backslash, and then we put the name of the file, which is demo_e, and we have to put the extension .xpt. So this line will create a marker called A that points to this particular file. And so what I want to do is I want to create a marker for each file. And so I'm just going to do them one by one and call them A, B, C, D, etc. So if I do a Control copy and a Control V here, I can just change this. This is going to be B, and this one can point to demo F, etc. And so if I just work through all of these, then I will create a lib name marker for all 8. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I have finished this. Let's review what I've done. So I've created these different labels using the lib name command. And data is going to be a label to mark a particular folder. This is the folder where I want to put my new SAS data sets. And then I created a separate marker for each of the files that I want to convert. So here's demo E and demo F. The E's are the 2007 to 2008 data. The F's are the 2009 to 2010 data. Otherwise, they have the same name. I'm using the demographic data. This is the medical conditions questionnaire. This is the smoking questionnaire. And these are the spirometry data, where the lung function data are. And because these are files, not folders, we have to tell SAS what kind of file it is. So since these are export files, we are using the term export here to tell SAS that what this label points to is an export file, so it will know how to handle it. So let's run this and see what happens. So to run SAS code, what we do is we hit this little symbol here, which is the running person. That's the submit button. So let's go ahead and submit it. And what you're going to see is that the log file will start having information in it, which tells us how things are running. And we can use that to check if things went well or not. Let's go ahead and hit the run button. So let's see what it says here, the log file. So the first command was libname data c enhanced data. It says libref data was successfully assigned as follows. So this is what you want to see when you use the libname command. You want to see that it's successfully assigned. And let's see if it did it for all of them. So it looks like everything worked well. So that's good. So now we've created these markers. Now what we can do is we can create the little bit of code that is necessary to convert the export files into SAS files and put them into the data folder. And so what we do is in SAS, we use things called procedures. And when you want to use a procedure, you always start with the command procedure, and then you write the name of the procedure that you want. Now we're using a procedure called proc copy, and what it will do it will copy a data set from one place and put it in another place, or you can put it in the same place too. But it will also convert it to a SAS data set that we can use. So the first thing we need to do is we need to, for each one of these data sets that we want to convert, we need to create one line of code using proc copy. And the first thing we do is we use a command called in equals. And this is basically, what are you reading in? What is the starting point that you're using, the starting data that you're using? And we've already created this label to point to the data. So I want to use this first one, which I've used the label A. And so all I have to write is in equals A, and SAS will know to go to this position or to this location, find this data set, and it knows that it's an export file, and it's going to read it in. And then what we want to do is we want to tell it where do we want to output the new SAS data file. And here we just have to give it a folder name, and we want to put all of these into the data folder. So we're just going to use the label that we created up here in the libnames data, out equals data, and SAS will take this demo.e export file, convert it into a SAS file, and place it into this folder. Now we need to end this with a semicolon, and then we also need to add one statement here, which is run. And so this tells SAS that, okay, we're done telling you what to do. Go ahead and run this line of code. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing that for all 8 of these files. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste and then edit, because the only thing that's going to change is the label that's pointing to the particular input data set. So I'm just going to create 8 of these. So I'm going to do control copy and then control paste and just do 8 of them. And then I'm going to change these to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And that's all we have to do to transport or to change our data from export files into SAS files we can use and to put them into this data folder. So let's go ahead and try to run this and see what happens. Now, one thing I can show you now is that we've already run this code up here on the top. We don't need to run this again. And actually, before I run it, I'm going to save it because I just noticed that asterisk there. It's always a good idea to save your code as often as possible in case something crashes. What we want to run is we only want to run these particular lines of code. We don't need to run this stuff up here. We already did it. So if you want to run just a portion of your program, what you can do is you could just highlight it like I did. And then instead of hitting the run button up here, the submit button, what you can do is you can go to the highlighted portion of the code that you want to run, and you can right click. And then instead of selecting submit all, select the submit selection. And this will just submit, it'll just run the code that you've highlighted. So let's go ahead and do this. Looks like the code is running. I'm just going to go to see my log file here. So let's see what the log file has. Let's see how things went here. There's our old stuff that we did before. So here's the proc copy running. So it looks like everything ran. Everything is in blue text. You'll see that when you have warnings, they use a different color. So everything looks like it ran. So let's go and let's look into the data folder. This is a temp folder. Let's go and look at the data folder to see if the data sets are there. And lo and behold, there they are. So here are the 8 data sets that I'm going to use, and they are now formatted as SAS data sets. You can see that over here on the type. So we have successfully changed our, downloaded the data from the NHANES website and converted all of the data to SAS data sets that we can use for our analysis. So what you want to do is you want to do this for the particular data sets that you need for your analysis. So you should have that information in your Excel file. When you are looking at the different variables you need, you know the data sets. So try to replicate what I did and get to the same point where I am here, that in your data folder, you have all of the data sets that you need, and they're all converted into SAS data sets.